All right, folks, let's see what's going on in the world. And all along those lines, it's always fascinating to see what's happening and to see what our panelists have to say about what's happening as well. I think tomorrow we're going to have somebody that's involved in the whole notion of electronic voting and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and all in that space. But it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that kind of way. So, China's Xi is saying that nobody can stop the family reunion with Taiwan. So China's Xi is hosting the former Taiwan president in Beijing in a rare meeting echoing bygone eras. So definitely looks like Xi Jinping is meeting Ma Ying-jeou, Taiwan's ex-president. So definitely looks like Xi is telling the former president that China and Taiwan are destined for reunifications. And Hamas is telling negotiators it doesn't have 40 Israeli hostages needed for the first round of a ceasefire. So Hamas could agree to free some hostages before permanent ceasefire in Gaza, and says apparently they're saying they're unable to locate the 40 Israeli hostages for the first stage of the hostage deal. So definitely it might be Hamas balking at the U.S. plans for a temporary Gaza strike. Gaza truce, that's what I should say, and everything. And apparently, Netanyahu's defense minister contradicts him and tells that U.S. Rafah invasion date is not set. So definitely, it looks like Gantz is aligned with Netanyahu and pledges Israeli offensive on Rafah and return to Khan Yunis. So Biden administration officials believe in Netanyahu's claim of a Russian invasion date has been set is only a bluster. So we'll see if that is the truth or if that date actually comes and is carried out. And Israel is threatened a direct attack against Iran if Tehran launches a strike from its territory and all along those lines. So it'll be definitely interesting to see what goes on in that place. And Biden is meeting Japan's Prime Minister Kishida over shared concerns about China and some of the differences as well. So Biden's state dinner for Japan is to feature Paul Simon and celebrate spring. So U.S. and Japan are upgrading security ties to counter China at the Biden Kishida summit. So definitely does look like we're trying to further and continue developing our ties to Japan and all along those lines. So that'll be interesting to see as well. And in Russia, not only is there a war going on, but there's also floods. So in Russia, there are floods. The Ural River has reached critical levels in Orenburg, and as water levels rise and homes flood in Russia after a dam burst near the Kazakhstan border, definitely it looks like a lot of people are worrying about that in that part of the world as well. So they've got a couple of things that are going on in that space. And there are Eid celebrations around the world. So definitely Muslims are celebrating with family reunions, new clothes or cloths, treats, and prayers. So Ramadan is ending this week, and definitely a lot of communities are deciding how and when they will celebrate that particular holiday, and all along those lines. And apparently, as I reported earlier, global temperatures have hit a record high in March for the 10th consecutive month. So the warmest March on record comes as Earth continues literally a hot streak. So it looks like they're in the middle of a hot streak, and a lot of people are wondering about this and how it will impact the summer, whether it'll be a deeply hot summer, and all in that space. So it'll be interesting to see in what goes on there. And two Canadians fought to survive the Taiwan earthquake. So Taiwan's Terrico National Park has been closed until further notice following the earthquakes in that part of the area and all along those lines. So that's some of the things that I am seeing. And counting is underway in South Korea's parliamentary election. So South Korea's Liberal Opposition Party wins big in the parliamentary election, as according to exit polls in that area. So definitely looks like the South Korea president might be set for a big loss in that country's parliament vote. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And in Italy, Amanda Knox is having a retrial over a slander conviction. So definitely that is something that is going on as well. And the international courts have ruled that Switzerland violated human rights in a landmark climate case brought by 2,000 women. So Swiss senior women have won the ECHR case that they had brought up in that space. So definitely that's going on. And we do know about, as I reported in the past, those honey trip chaps and all in that space. So the honey trap Tory MP is right to apologize, according to Rishi Sunak. So Sunak is saying that the rag saga shows the importance of people taking care with unsolicited messages. So definitely, apparently, that unsolicited messages is what got him in trouble, and all along those lines. And the European courts have taken a Russian billionaires off of the sanction list. So Russian billionaires have been taken off of the EU sanction list, and Ukraine has been accused of another nuclear plant drone strike. So definitely that is something that goes on. And Mexico has released videos of Ecuador's raid on its embassy. And definitely that is something else that's going on in terms of Latin America and how that is going. And apparently, nuclear deals are in tatters, and Iran is edging closer to weapons capability. So, definitely, there's a number of things going on in that space as well. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene renews her threats to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson. So, that is something that is going on as the UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron defends his meetings with Trump in his trip to the United States. And I also had heard that there was one of the athletes or one of the owners of one of the major NFL teams that was saying that people just didn't understand Trump, that he is a wonderful gentleman and has definitely got a great sense of humor and all along those lines, and that he's definitely a better individual than people are making him out to be. That is what one of the owners of the New York Jets has said. And I think that he is also very much involved in the space of being a former ambassador. So definitely that'll be interesting to see what goes on in that way. By the way, Germany is rejecting allegations that it is facilitating acts of genocide in Gaza at the UN court. So definitely that is something that people are talking about as well. Before I bring in my rest of the folks and we see what else they've got on their minds, including the fact that I think there's a major ambassador coming to North Carolina that might be met with some bluegrass music and some barbecue and some other things. I want to say it's somebody from Japan. I've got to look that up, but I do know that I heard that there was somebody coming in from the Asian court that'll be coming to this area. And I got to remember where I heard that story from and which one of the folks that is leadership will be coming to this fair state. And once I do find that out, I'll let you know. And because I do know that they were going to be greeted with those kind of things of barbecue and I believe a little bit of bluegrass music and some other things as well. So definitely Arizona Republicans are denouncing the revised 1864 abortion ban in a sudden reversal. So that is something else that we're seeing, as well as how a number of people are paying attention to that particular story also, and seeing how that plays out in the theater of public opinion and all along those lines. And the EPA has got new rules requiring utilities to reduce toxic chemicals in drinking water. So you've been getting some toxic chemicals in your drinking water. They are saying that that will be reduced in that space. And Brian Dorsey, U.S. prisoner, executed despite clemency appeals by the guards. So Missouri executed Brian Dorsey for the 2006 double murder after a mercy bid backed by 72 correctional officers. So there were some folks that were trying to rally to help him out and all along those lines. But definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. And GOP senators are trying to convince Speaker Johnson to delay the Mayorkas impeachment article delivery. So definitely, apparently there are some people that are saying that the GOP is trying to make the Dems pay for the Mayorkas vote and everything. So definitely a lot of things are going on, including an ex-Trump CFO, Alan Weisselberg, sentenced to 5 months for perjury in that whole Trump one of the Trump cases and all in that space, because it looks like he was sentenced to 5 months in jail after testifying falsely about the size of Trump's deep triplex apartment and all in that way. So definitely looks like that is something going on. And in some sad news, a baby was found dead on the Los Angeles highway that was linked to a family's murder-suicide. So apparently a woman killed her boyfriend in Woodland Hills, pushed the daughter out on 405 freeway, then fatally crashed in Redondo Beach. So looks like this Los Angeles mother stabbed her boyfriend to death before throwing her baby from a moving car and killing herself in a crash. And in other parts of the world, it looks like an ex-assistant principal has been charged with child neglect in the case of a boy who shot the teacher, and that, I believe, was in the New York area and all along those lines. So ex-assistant principal was charged after ignoring warning child who shot teacher had a gun. So definitely it looks like in this case with the Abigail Schwerner shooting, the assistant principal has been charged with felonies. So definitely that'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that, is particularly as it deals with gun control and all along those lines. And like I said earlier on yesterday, an Idaho man is facing the federal terrorism charge as prosecutors are saying he planned a church attack and all along those lines. So, like I said, I'm going to bring in my fellow panelists and see what they've got to go on. And I've got Rick Rosner with me. Who knows who else will be joining me? Maybe Nick Palveda and others might be joining us as well. But how's your day going, Rick? It looks like y'all have had all kinds of things going on in the news, including that incident in Las Vegas where the person, the lawyer, the Vegas lawyer, fatally shot a prominent attorney and wife, and apparently the wife had terminal cancer. So definitely a number of things are going on the West Coast.
I don't know about, like, I turn the news when it's like stories of individual tragedy, and I try to look at the bigger stories. For instance, inflation came in at 3.5% instead of the anticipated 3.4%. So the market is freaking out, and probably they're saying the Fed won't cut interest rates in June. Okay. But if Sasha shows up, will be the one who really knows about that stuff.
Yeah, he definitely knows about that kind of stuff, and we'll see what he's got going on. Matter of fact, Sasha just showed up now, so we'll see what he's saying about the inflation, because Rick was bringing up the notion that the inflation is not going to be as bad as people are thinking it's going to be, and all along those lines.
I didn't say that. I said that inflation came in 1/10 of a point higher than they anticipated. So
this is nothing but circus. You should not pay any attention to 1/10 of 1%. It's a joke. Number one. Number two, if your goal is 2% inflation, forget it for the next 755 years. It's not going to be 2%. Inflation will be much higher than that. 3% is a good number. And if it's going to be at 3%, that's fine. If it's going to be more, most likely it will be more than 3%. But that's the reality of life. The same as U.S. debt is $35 trillion. It's not going to be $34 trillion, never. It will be more likely $40 trillion and $55 trillion. That's about it. It's a reality. But
hey, Sasha, you asked me a question yesterday that I think Nick would probably be better to answer than I was to answer, because you were trying to figure out why the common citizen should be caring about the debt and how we can the whole debt control, which is usually an issue that Nick brings up. So I'm paraphrasing what you asked me, but if you will ask him, because like I said, he's more economically inclined than I am. So if you would ask the question that you asked me, maybe he will have a better answer than I did. So that's what I was saying.
Nick, yesterday we had on the program one issue. What I was trying to figure out, where people are worrying about, like you, for example, about U.S. debt, whether it's $35 trillion or maybe 34.5, or much higher than that. How does it affect rank and file people in society who are going to buy some groceries? So what's the result of price of groceries? It's a result a supplier is trying to sell it at much higher prices. It's a supermarket trying to buy it at much lower prices. So finally they're coming to some kind of price which is okay for both of them. And then supermarket is trying to sell it as higher price as possible to the consumer. Okay. Now this, what it has to do with U.S. debt whatsoever. Go and explain.
Oh, the reason the debt affects this is that it goes back to a couple of items. Number one, of course, we know the largest budget item that the U.S. government will be paying for is interest on the national debt, which David Walker points out you get nothing for. So your tax dollars go in, nothing really comes out. So there is no social programs that Jatovy advocates for, because all the money will be used just to pay the national debt.
But the interest rate.
Okay, now why does it create inflation?
So what you and me or anybody else has with interest rates except Fed? And Fed is dictating its interest rates the way they feel like. There are no laws, there's no regulations, there's nothing.
Well, the thing is, the solution for the U.S. government, they don't want to increase taxes because rich people hate it. They won't want to decrease social spending because Democrats hate it. So what do? They basically expand the money supply.
Nick,
And when you
what
add
is
more,
how it affects prices in the supermarket if you are going to buy
yeah, because
loaf of bread?
yeah,
It just does not.
yeah, it's real simple. You have more dollars that are chasing the goods now than ever before, and it affects prices all up and down the line. So, for example, if we handed everybody in this room $1 million, and you say, "Okay, I'm going to go out and buy some real estate," well, now we're all competing because we all have an extra million on the same real estate. We start bidding it up. We saw that when interest rates went down. This is Greenberg's problem. People thought like he did. When interest rates go down, you're just going to get a lower price for your mortgage. Instead, people start bidding up homes. So what happens when we have this increase in money supply? People will spend more money on the same good, and what happens? It creates more inflation, which is what we're seeing. So here's what's going to happen. See, Sasha, you're correct. The debt will not go down. The debt's 34 trillion. It goes up about $1 trillion every 100 days. So it'll be 35 trillion in no time. So that's continually increase. The deficit, because we have a Democratic administration who's clueless on economics, it's going to increase another 1.7 trillion according to the new budget. Taxes are going to go up on the rich, but it's not going to help the debt or the deficit. So what's going to happen is we're going to have more and more inflation. That means when you go to McDonald's, you get a hamburger, you're going to be spending $20 for your Big Mac. It's just because there's more money out there. I mean, you can see it in the real estate market. You can see it in the stock market, everywhere you go. So you're also right. This 2% inflation, you're not going to see that. If that's the Fed only has one metric. They can up and down interest rates. The federal government has a huge metric. They have a $7 trillion metric, which is their budget, and they can increase it or decrease it. There's no incentive for them whatsoever to decrease it. So everybody here is going to be paying for the
Nick, so if I'm hearing you correctly, as I've said before, one of the things that I do probably too much, because I definitely probably could use my oven and refrigerator and do more at-home cooking and all along those lines. But I do know that sometimes I will order out DoorDash, not so much Grubhub, and all in that space. And they have what they call convenience fees. So if I'm hearing you correctly, those convenience fees, if the debt continues to go up, would increase. So like right now, let's say I'm paying $6 or $7 for convenience fees and everything, that could go up to like $20 or $30.
Oh, yeah.
If the debt continues.
All across the board. When I graduated from law school, and this goes quite some time ago, I rented my first apartment. It was $195 a month. That was it. Show me one apartment in the United States you can get for $195 a month. Impossible because of this great inflation. Yeah, Rick.
Year over year wage growth is 4.5%. So for people who work for a living, on average, their wages are going up faster than inflation.
Yeah, and so right now it's good. And by the way, that trend may continue. In other words, the wages may barely keep up with inflation. And so the thing is, overall, people go, well, I'm not doing so bad yet. And I use the operative word yet. Because what happens is this debt continually grows. It's like a big cancer cell. You just injected a huge cancer cell inside of you. And you go, well, I only have cancer. It'll be a while before I die. But the cancer cell keeps growing. And eventually you die. Now, how do you die?
Isn't inflation a global issue, though?
Yeah, it is. But remember, Jatovi, the United States GDP is 25% of the world economy. Now, if you look at what really happened after World War II, the United States GDP was 50% of the world economy. In other words, half the goods and services and everything in the world were produced by the United States. We've actually lowered since World War II from 50 to 25%. And as the United States sneezes, everybody else feels the drift. So when we had a mortgage crisis, it went all over the world. The recession that we took place goes all over the world. Whatever we do will have a ripple effect throughout the world. So when inflation happens here, it happens all over the world. Now, I did find something interesting in Spain. This is funny. This is where your friend Shaquille makes his multi-million-dollar income. It's just he trades off these little differences that happen in global markets. To buy a house here in the United States, my interest rate is about 7.2%. To buy a house in Spain, it's 2.5%. The inflation, the interest has not really gone globally. So you can actually buy homes in certain countries with a much lower interest rate than you can in the United States. And you can look at the nominal rate of the houses. They haven't gone up, but you also have to look at this. The average Spaniard makes half of what the average person in the United States makes.
So
It's
if
just-
What is their cost of living in those countries and everything? But really quickly,
I'll see you in
Nick, one of
Spain,
the
baby.
arguments that I've heard people make, and I think maybe even Sasha and others have made it as well, is that there is been a push, and there's been a push for years to increase the wages of even the lower workers, and I don't want to say lower workers, but like the kind of folks that are doing like restaurant jobs and everything. And one of the arguments that people make is that if you increase the salary of, say, the cook at McDonald's, I'll just use McDonald's as an example, then that price of the burger would go up, and all along those lines if they got to, because they would have to cover that cost if we got to $20 an hour, which is what some people want because of the cost of living.
If instead McDonald's will hire immigrants who just came from Latin America or wherever, then price of hamburger will go down because they will never ask for increase in their salaries. They will be very happy to get whatever they can get there, and therefore the inflation will be
Hey,
completely.
Sasha,
Minimum
unless
wage
you're
in Los Angeles.
So
Minimum
just
wage in Los Angeles just did go to $20 an hour. And yeah,
Yes,
people
that's
like
a
to
problem.
complain about that, but people complain less about like the McDonald's CEO making what, probably $4.5 million a year. Is he really, 200, 500 times more valuable to the company than somebody flipping the burgers?
No, but
So,
the thing is,
just to-
he's
just to point out-
able to get it out of the corporation. I mean, because he spends his whole life trying to figure out how he can milk the corporation, where the guy who's flipping the burger, his life is just flipping a burger. So
But-
he makes a lot more. And it's totally wrong, Rick. Executive pay in the United States is way out of proportion
So,
to what people
so
make.
just to point
Yeah.
out the executive pay, how that split is, and how the cost of living is lower. I got the ABC song going in the background, but so you got the cost of living that is relatively high still across the board everywhere. The inflation that's a global issue everywhere. You say it's a ripple effect from the U.S. to everywhere, and a lot of some of the inflation is due to greedflation. So those same companies with those high CEOs have found out that people are going to still pay these high prices even without the inflation that's there. And we still complain about that low-end worker who is now getting $20 per hour for minimum wage, but have nothing to complain about for the CEO or the business that's milking the actual, that's actually milking the public. So really, is the problem the U.S. government, or is it the actual businesses who are actually greedy and milking everything from there? So when you talk about the U.S. debt, why do you not talk about these other companies that are creating that debt by creating the false inflation?
Well, it's like Deion Sanders said to Tovey, it's both. In other words, you have both the greedy corporate owners, and you also have the wild spending of the American politicians, liberals. So both of them have
apologize
contributed
to McDonald's. I said that their CEO makes $4.5 million, and that was wildly off. He makes $19.2 million.
Yeah, 19.2 million. Okay, and see that one of the problems, and you can blame the Republicans and Ronald Reagan, who's one of the worst presidents ever, for this. Ronald Reagan reduced the taxes on the wealthy people. Ronald Reagan wanted to repeal the federal estate taxes on wealthy people. He created a carte blanche for wealthy people. And his attitude, well, if you make a lot of money, then you're just not want to be an actor anymore, because believe it or not, tax rates were like 90% if you made more than $1 million. My argument would be then you bring some young person in and give them an opportunity to make some money. Their argument is they want to hog all the money. So what's happening, and you're spot on right, Jacoby, the wealthy people in this country become more and more wealthy relative to the poor people, and there's nothing stopping them. They own Congress, they own the Senate, they own the president. I mean, they own everything. So they even get corporate welfare, which I've been ramming about, that they go to Washington to receive huge amounts of corporate grants, and they're very sly about it. They keep it quiet, and the media keeps it quiet, because guess what? They pay off the media. So you're not gonna see on CBS this morning the attack on corporate pay of the president of CBS. By the way, what does the president of CBS make, Rick?
Well,
I'd be very curious to see what the president of CBS.
Well, you're looking that up and everything. I got a question for you, and it's based on something we oftentimes talk about as well, which is education. Because apparently, the governor of North Carolina has said that we need to, because he said there's a public school emergency, because he's declared this the year 2024, the year of public schools, and definitely he's talking about the amount of kids that go to public schools. I know that both of my nephews go to public schools. They say 8 and 10 school-age children attend public schools, but he's also saying that there needs to be a moratorium of what they call destructive private school vouchers until North Carolina public schools are fully funded. So I just wondering our thoughts about this notion of vouchers and whether they need to have a moratorium.
Well, vouchers are a scam. Vouchers are a scam. Vouchers are a scam to strip, in the name of choice, to strip public schools of money. But anyway, CBS, I guess, is owned by something called Paramount Global.
Paramount Global, that's correct, right?
And Robert Bakish.
How's he doing?
He's okay. He made $32 million. His base salary was $3.1 million. Then he got $16 million in bonuses, another 16 or so million in stock. $32 million.
And so he makes $32 million. Will you ever see CBS come out against corporate pay, where some guy's pulling down $32 million a year?
No, and these are the guys. There's a guy who makes who runs Warner, who makes like $300 million. So these are the guys who are shelving movies that are supposed to be good, like the Roadrunner movie and Batgirl, that people desperately want to see, that already made, ready to show, never going to show them because they get some kind of tax break for not showing them.
They had some venture capitalists come into HBO and cut all that stuff, if I remember. They cut because DC was failing so bad. It was some group that came in that they had to trim all these extra movies and didn't want to take, and that's what all this merger came about. But either way, to get back to the point, you keep pointing to saying the liberals don't understand the economy and all doing all this bad stuff. However, you just admitted the worst president you considered was Ronald Reagan. Right. Before him was Richard Nixon. That's where the trickle-down economics idea started from. And that trickle-down economics thing was the same thing Reagan implemented, which is the same thing that every Republican individual pushes, is that, hey, we've got to cut the taxes on the wealthy and they'll be able to create more jobs, unleash the beast or starve the beast. So if you're saying that the worst president did the worst thing in the world that you consider, yet Trump, every Republican in Congress right now, every Republican running for Congress right now, every Republican who in just the recent past has used the same terminology that Ronald Reagan has and has implemented these quote unquote tax cuts that you keep saying are the worst thing in the world.
Yep.
How do you consider the Democrats or the liberals, the party that doesn't understand monetary value, when the individual you said that did the worst thing in the world is the same party platform by the group that is still doing the same thing that the worst president in the world did?
Yeah, well, I'll get to that after Rick, but
so let's talk about trickle down. The Nixon's idea, Reagan's idea of trickle down is, if you don't charge rich people taxes, they'll take the money they save and invest them in their businesses, creating more jobs. But it turns out, when you do studies, when you let rich people keep their money, they save it. They put it, they buy, they don't invest in it because they're not.
Well, they buy bigger homes. I mean, we see this in the ultra luxury real estate market. They buy bigger homes. They save more money for their own financial security if they need one. They buy yachts. Look at what Jeff Bezos does. Does he reinvest? Oh, maybe a little, but look at the house he bought in Florida. He bought a $140 million home and he tore it down because he's going to put a $300 million home. Now, I'm going to tell you what they do in Spain. This would stop a lot of the garbage. They impose a 10% upfront tax on real estate purchases. Okay, so I'm looking to buy it. I'm going like, what's my biggest budget item? In the down payment, or I could just pay cash. It doesn't matter. Spain's going to take 10% upfront on a real estate transaction. Now, the United States could easily adopt it. It would affect rich people more than poor people because poor people rent, rich people buy. It'll affect the rich people more because when he buys his $140 million house, he's going to spend $14 million in taxes on it. Then he tears it down and builds a $300 million house. Unfortunately, I don't see any tax that would be placed on that. It's a very simple system, and it works.
Nick, how many houses can you live in? And every time that I look at, it's been a minute since I've watched Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous or all of those kind of shows and everything, but I do know that quite often they have multiple houses in multiple environments and all along those lines. So last time I checked, you can only live in one house at a time and everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, Mark, let me tell you what they do, because I worked in this area for 17 years. Before getting into pensions, I was a high-end estate planning attorney. I worked with the president of Bausch & Lomb, was one of my clients, the president of Kimberly-Clark, the president of Philip Morris, the founder of Dunkin' Donuts, the founding family of Coca-Cola. So what they did, they own 2 homes usually, or sometimes more. They spend half their time in Florida and Naples in their $15 million home, and then the other half up north, wherever they came from, in their $30 million home. And you know what they do in Naples? They just close it up. And you can go down there, Naples, Palm Beach, you'll see all these homes just closed up. You go, where are they? They're back up north. Everybody works in that market.
They're doing that snow bunny
they just
thing.
spend half the time in home A, half the time in home B.
And how many cars?
$40 million. Hold on. So the $40 million penthouses in these new skyscrapers along 57th Street, New York City, owned by foreign investors that may never be occupied. If you're a Russian oligarch, the money you have in Russia is worthless because Putin can take it away if you piss him off. So you buy these, you buy Trump properties, and you don't mind like taking a bath because you spent $40 million on a penthouse that's only worth $20 million. At least your money is out of Russia.
Out of the country. You're right, Rick. It's out of the country. It's into a solid investments into real estate, and they may never show up. But see, there's no disincentive in certain countries for them to purchase that property. There's no 10% upfront tax. People don't even think because the liberals do not encourage education to be correct.
But Nick, hold on a second. Nick, it's not just in.
Why don't they teach?
Hold on a second, Nick.
How the rich people screw the poor
Nick, hold on a second. It's not just in New York. It's not just in New York because I know for a fact, and Jacoby knows this as well.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
No, hold on a second.
Just to push back on that a little bit. Just to push back on that a little bit.
Don't say I got to increase
the panel.
Just to push back on that a little bit. You keep saying the liberals on that.
101.
No, you keep saying the liberals on that. Again, if we get back to the worst president that you said was the worst president, doing worse things, is the same party platform that group is still doing. Now, if you take a look at both party platforms, one party wants to cut funding from education every single time. Yeah. That is the party platform that you dislike. That is the Republican Party platform. The Democrat platform wants to put money in education to do the particular things that you're talking about.
But they're teaching the wrong things, Jacoby. Okay, if you say, look, I want to give my teacher $10,000 a year more, and what we want them to do is teach ping pong. You're teaching the wrong thing. So until the liberals wake up and realize you got to teach the right thing.
There's no state more liberal than California, and we're going to have a ballot initiative to make an economic literacy class mandatory in high schools. I hope it passes. I hope the class doesn't suck.
Yeah, there are also some high schools within North Carolina that already have a financial literacy class, as well as a bank run by students in the actual high school. So these are things that the quote unquote liberals want to have, but you cannot have those things without the money. And who wants to cut the money? The same party that you're saying has the worst president, has the has the worst president that did the worst thing that you
Okay,
hate.
I got you hate the Republicans.
No, you stated it.
I just said Ronald Reagan. I didn't say a party. I just said
You
Reagan.
said Ronald Reagan.
He's
you
an
also said Richard
icon to
Nixon
people,
and everything.
but
But
don't
hey,
really know this guy.
just really quickly, Nick, because you brought it up in the whole notion of housing, and I know for a fact, I think Joey knows this as well, that there are $1 million houses in Durham. Durham is not that. It is not New York City, and it's not along those lines. But there are definitely
I
some
see one
loft
from my
apartments that are
front
in
porch.
downtown Durham. Literally, I think one of them you have a nice swimming pool above it and everything, but you also have a view of the prison and all along. So you get a nice sunny view of the prison. So I just wonder if some of these prices overpriced and all along those lines, because when I think about the fact of being in downtown Durham and paying $1 million, I would never pay $1 million if I'm going to get a view of a prison if I had $1 million to spend it. I have nowhere near that. But I'm going like, why would you even buy that kind of apartment when that is your view? I mean, on the other side, you might get a nice view of Duke and some other things that are nice, but there are a lot of things that you're going like, why did you spend that kind of money?
I don't know. Let's see what
I
Sasha
can tell you
said.
that.
What did you say?
Oh, let Sasha go. I'll tell you afterwards.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to talk?
Go ahead, Sasha. It's on you, and then he'll answer.
I came to the conclusion that the financial education, it's a fallacy. It's a complete waste of time and money, except those who teach. For them, okay, they will make a little bit of money. All of them, others one, they're all losers. And I'll tell you why. My late grandfather was telling me that those who know how to swim, they can drown, because those who don't know how to swim, they will never go for swimming. Then, therefore, they will never drown. So people who don't have any clue about financial literacy or whatever other you want to call it, so they will get their paycheck, will go to the bank, deposit, go home, have chicken soup, and go to bed or watching sport on TV. Now, if you want to teach him a little bit about, there are stocks, there are bonds, and you can do options, and you can do that, he will lose all his money in no time. Therefore, there is no use for him to know something that he cannot effectively use. It's better to know nothing than a little bit. Know a little bit is the worst case scenario. That's why most people lose money on the stock market, because they know something and that hurts them, doesn't help at all. Those who don't, they don't touch it. They just go home, deposit their paycheck, and that's it. So therefore, for most of the people, 99% of the people, financial literacy is a bogus, it's a scam, and it's not nothing that what they really need. Period. Full stop. Remember that. Forget about financial literacy. People don't need it. It will hurt them, not help.
Well, Tuffy, you had a statement you're going to make about the $1 million home, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around financial literacy, because I do know a number of people try to invest in a variety of things, and some of them are things that are concrete items, whether that's a car or a house or other things, and I would argue they need to know how to invest in those things. But Tuffy, I'd love to hear your answers about the $1 million home with the view of the prison.
First, with Sasha, I disagree that it would hurt them. I think having it as an option, I don't think it should be something forced. So, because there are people that, I will say, okay, well, I disagree and agree, because I think it will hurt some of those that don't want to go in any form of banking. I think it may harm them in their focus on what they want to do with their lives. So our focus should be, yes, financial literacy should be an option for individuals to be able to take. I think there was one high school here in North Carolina that I visited that did have that state-run bank, that had the student-run bank, and they also had financial literacy classes for not only the kids that wanted to run the bank, but also for if those individuals wanted to. So students could have a bank in school. They could also learn if they wanted to. So if they wanted to go further with
and
it.
this is a much better form of learning for students, some form of investing or just anything of that, is to have investment club. If you have investment club, So obviously, people who don't want to join it, forget it. They will never come through. Now, those who are interested, they will form a club. They will have a leader, maybe another student who knows a little bit more than others, or maybe a teacher who is interested to help them out and to explain something, or maybe even invite somebody if it's a school in a prosperous location, and students and especially parents decided to have extra curriculum, this club. Okay, here's I think that a lot of stockbrokers would be interested to help with the investment club, because that's how they will get new clients eventually. Okay.
And I can agree with that. I can agree that it had to be a club. That'd be beautiful, because I think a lot of
I like that idea.
Students would join if they wanted to.
Oh,
forcing them to join or forcing them to do, that's where, yes, I think that's going to cause problems for people, because that's going to take away their idea of what they want to do and where they want to be. So yes, I can agree with the club, and just not making it mandatory. There are particular things that we need to focus on in our schools to be mandatory, but yeah, the forcing them into something that they're not going to really excel at, and many will fail. That's going to be a tough thing to do. So I can agree with that. In terms of Mark, your thing about the amenities and the things that you get involved with those actual areas, plus you're not really focused that, oh, well, that building is the jail. No, the whole skyline is actually really nice while you're up there, and everything that you have going on. The only thing you think about is what you see in front of you, and you don't really even see the jail. You see all this other stuff. So that's why those things are expensive, because the skyline is beautiful when you go up there.
Yeah. Right.
So referring back to what Sasha said, there's a saying in poker that if you don't know who the sucker is at the table, you're the sucker. And so I know enough about poker to know that I shouldn't play poker. But if you played some online poker and you know like which hands beat which other hands, and then you go to play against real people, they're going to eat your lunch. Like you're talking about $1 million houses in California, the average house now costs $800,000, and for your $800,000, you get like, I don't know, 1,200 square foot, 1,400 square foot, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. It's not palatial.
It's not palatial at all. Just really,
it's totally different. But I have to agree with what Sasha brought up. Or maybe it's to Toby. The investment club idea is frankly a great idea, because when I took finance and MBA class, no matter how you look at coupon bonds and look at all this stuff in a book, it doesn't make a difference to you. When I started on TD Ameritrade and I put my hard-earned money into the market and watch it go up and down, it meant something to me. Okay. If you have these kids, take the $10,000 raise you're going to give to a worthless teacher. Don't give it to the worthless teacher. Put it into the investment club, 10 grand, and let the kids trade. They'll see the what do they call it? The sweet, wonderful success and the agony of defeat right in front of them all the time, every day, as the market keeps moving up and down. But yeah, the investment club idea, I'd be all for using taxpayer money to fund the investment club. And then when they get a dividend, send them little checks. Then when Jacoby says you don't have to mandate them, no, they don't have to be there, but they're not going to get a dividend check either. Okay, I would join the investment club. I want my dividend check.
You are absolutely right about when you are learning something and when you are actually doing that are two completely different things.
Two different things.
Up to real money. There was an interesting story about, there was a well-known Grandmaster Levenfish. He passed away many years ago, and he had a lecture in Moscow Central Club, and one guy asked him, Grandmaster Levenfish, what would be your advice? How can I improve my level of play? And he said, you play a ruble a game, and you will learn very fast how to play the game.
Right. It certainly makes a big difference.
Nick and Sasha, what is one of the number one
totally
games one of the number one games that's been the number one game in society
market.
forever and a day. And all along those lines, I didn't say a sport, I said a game. And it's been a game that's been popular for years. And some people will say that it is where people first learn finance and learn about investments and learn about strategies of investment and techniques and all along those lines. But it's been out there for a while.
It
And
sounds
some
like
people
you're
think
talking
that
about
was a
Monopoly.
Huh?
Are you talking about Monopoly?
Monopoly, yes.
Yeah, well, Monopoly was created by a guy who hated capitalism to show how capitalism sucks. And if you play Monopoly, you know that games never end happily. They go on too long, people get cleaned out. Somebody usually often ends up flipping the board over. Monopoly is a lesson on just how to get taken advantage of. And when you go into the investment market, you're competing. You're the sucker at the table. You're competing against people whose job it is to know stuff. Now, you can, if you focus on a thing, Sasha is currently focused on NVIDIA and I'm sure you've spent dozens and hundreds of hours looking at NVIDIA and how it's positioned in the market. And you'll know when it's time to get out of NVIDIA because you've invested the time and used your expertise.
Rick, the beauty of NVIDIA is not the stock or even the company. The beauty are the options and the premium of those options. That's where I'm making money. I'm not making so much money on the stock of NVIDIA. Right now, I have very, very small position. I have 200 shares of NVIDIA. That's all. It used to be time when I owned 1,000 shares of NVIDIA, but now it's only 200 because it's forming a base. It will take time. The next earning reports is around May 2022. So there is still time that it has to form the base, and then close to earnings, it will start go higher. So, but I sold options, and that's where I'm making money. The premiums are incredible. This is why on my financial show, we have a couple of guys who are saying that, no, the best way to invest is to buy S&P 500. And then you're buying whole American economy and so on. But you know that Magnificent Seven, so-called, they are generating almost all profits of S&P 500. So why don't you buy Magnificent Seven stock and forget about the rest of 493 stocks? You just don't need them. Just have Magnificent Seven. And among Magnificent Seven, NVIDIA probably, if not top one, then top three for sure, with the, what is it? I forgot the name. Facebook. What's Meta? Okay, it's
Meta.
Okay, it's Meta now. Tesla fell behind, but it's trying to recover. So, I mean, you'll always find 2-3 stocks in the group of Magnificent Seven, and you don't need S&P 500. And options is a great result. That's why, okay, there are options on S&P 500, so you can buy S&P 500 and sell covered calls, right? But the premiums are so lousy. So when I looked at the premiums and compared them to the premiums of options on NVIDIA, I just can't touch S&P 500. I just can't. My time is too valuable to look at this garbage. So that's why I don't touch S&P 500.
No, I hear you and
I
everything.
got a
Hey,
great
I
idea, Sasha.
got a quick question for you,
Going
Nick.
off your investment club, on the investment club, what we should do is fund it with $100,000, let the kids and the teacher invest, and then at the end of the day, declare a dividend at the end of the year, and the teacher gets 90%. So this way the kids will learn what COP is all about.
Hey, I got a quick question for you, though, Nick. I got a quick question for you along those same lines, because a couple of times on this show and other shows, you have kind of poo-pooed the idea of the arts and the arts being important. I actually think the arts are important, even in the development of critical thinking and everything along those lines. So I just wanted your thoughts about that, because I think that we do need music departments and even some drama departments and other things, even the visual arts in the education space. But I think that I've heard you say sometimes that you're not a big fan of that and everything.
I'm a big fan of the arts. I'm not a fan of a broke federal government. See, people still think the U.S. is rich. It's bloody broke. And I'm talking about the federal, not the state, because they're required to balance their budget. Same with the cities. Okay. And some of the cities aren't, and some of the cities are broke, but it's city by city. What I'm not in favor is the broke federal government. So if you want to be woke, just remember your federal government is broke.
Well, I
funding
gotta ask
anything.
you the same question that
Funding
Toby asked
anything,
you and everything.
including
What
the
is
arts.
woke? What is the
Broke?
definition of
If
woke?
you want to be woke, just realize
What is
the federal
woke?
government is broke. Hey, that's a good one. We should promote that slogan. If you want to be woke, just remember your federal government is
But you
broke.
cannot use a term that you cannot define.
Yeah, I just asked him to define it.
States, I don't have any problem with it. We have some very well-managed states in the United States. They have the money, love to
Nick,
fund the arts.
Nick,
Certain cities, no problem. Federal government, I got a big problem. Yeah.
You keep coming back to that and everything. So I'm gonna ask you the same thing that Toby's asked you, which is what is woke, and also should public schools be teaching the arts as well?
Being woke is realizing the federal government is broke. Now you're woke. You're,
So that's
you're
the
woke. The
definition
federal
of woke.
government's broke.
So the
I'm
definition of
because I
woke
know the
is to
federal government's
realize.
broke.
So you're basically being redundant in your statement, then.
Well, you know what I'm saying is that the federal government is broke, and you're all parading around. I mean,
I'm just trying to figure out.
reminding me of rich lowlives. There are a lot of rich lowlives out there that live in these $1 million homes, and they're broke. When I lived in the St. Andrews Country Club, half the people there would mortgage their house to the hilt. They had no money. They were on the verge of bankruptcy. Seriously, they're living in these multi-million-dollar homes, and they're broke. Okay, there's a big difference between. And the U.S. is like that right now. They're parading around. Oh, we're the United States of America. We're the richest country in the world. No, you're not. United States of America, you're one of those broke countries in the world. And somewhere along the line, you got to.
Could there be potentially other? Hold on a second. Could there be potentially other issues? Even when you come back to that notion of people being
by both
broke
the
and
Democrats
living in
and the
big
Republicans.
houses and everything, because I do know of at least one or two individuals that were homeless and all in that space. And yes, you did enough research, you could find out that they lived in some fancy houses, but even their family admitted that they had other issues going on that need to be addressed as well. But according to you, that might not need funding either, because some of these people are also dealing with mental health issues as well if they're living in fancy houses and
well, yeah, some of the rich people are dealing with mental health issues also. I mean, I won't disagree with that, but the United States is dealing with one big mental health issue. They're parading around like they're rich and they're bloody broke. Last time I looked, their government takes in what, $7 trillion, and they have a $34 trillion debt, and they're parading around. Well, we're the United States government. We'll spend money on this. Joe Biden, oh, I'll forgive all the debt of all the student taxpayers. Oh, I'll go build a bridge for you for free. Oh, I'll put all the money into climate change, like he's a rich man. Joe Biden doesn't realize he runs the most broke, woke country in the world. And somewhere along the line, the data and the facts.
What government is not doing that?
Woke in a different terminology there than you did use than you tried to use woke before. So you don't understand what woke means. So
woke means you're broke.
No, it doesn't.
I don't care. Woke means word means whatever you want it to mean. Nothing more, nothing less.
In terms of the actual, again, we go back to how you said, and you keep bringing up Joe Biden.
Go on, defend the program that the United States is running.
So being a country is often a confidence game. The broke big millionaire, if he can keep up appearances, he can keep getting people to invest. As long as the U.S. can convince people to invest in their debt, we can keep selling debt. That's what we do.
It's a confidence game. It should be run by a con man. And guess what? It was run by a con man for 4 years. It's called Donald Trump. He'll probably get elected again because the U.S. is just a con man.
Well, here's the deal. We're talking about inflation. On the one hand, I haven't had Fox News on today, but I can guarantee they are hammering the 3.5% inflation number coming in. It was supposed to be 3.4. It came in at 3.5, and the Biden inflation, blah blah blah. And that's on the one hand. On the other hand, Arizona yesterday, the Supreme Court said no abortion for anybody unless the baby will kill the mom. And
so, yeah, they are bringing back the Civil War era abortion law.
It's like pre-Civil War.
Yeah, so
middle of Civil War,
where women have no rights. Women. That's Mark Robinson saying how he talked about. He felt the time was better when women couldn't vote. So that's what they're going back to. It is truly turning into the Handmaid's Tale. And yes, what you're talking about, Rick. Yeah, they're going to hammer that because they don't want to talk about the abortion debate.
So, but here's the deal.
I know we're getting ready to wind down. I know, Rick, you had your hand up, but once you're done with your comment, I just want to know, this is for particularly my fellow North Carolinians and all along those lines. But the Japanese Prime Minister is coming, I think, tomorrow and everything. So I want to know, because Nick, you've got access to everybody and everything. Why don't we have an invitation? Because they're going to Sarah Duke Gardens, they're going to a number of other places. So I'm trying to figure out why we're not going to meet the Japanese Prime Minister and his wife, who apparently are going to be all over Durham and Raleigh having barbecue and a number of other things, even some Ashley Christensen, which is a famous chef, food and everything. So I'm trying to figure out why Pod TV is not there and everything, since we are.
Well, you have to ask Steve. He's our Washington D.C. correspondent. Where's Steve Rao? Oh, he's probably having dinner with the Prime Minister now, so he doesn't have time for us. But it's Steve's thing. I didn't know the Prime Minister was coming, but I think Rick had a comment. Yes, before we.
I'm just saying. Say you're a creepy guy who thinks you're the best, most talented guy in the world. If you want to make a kid that has 3/4 of your genes, then move your family to Arizona and knock up your kid. And it's illegal. It's illegal for her to get an abortion. There's no exceptions for rape or incest. So
hold on a second, Rick. Wait a minute. There's a famous rapper whose daughter may be going that route and everything, because there's been a lot of media talk about the fact that one of Russell Simmons' daughters, who is 21, has apparently, even though they broke up now, this 65-year-old boyfriend that they went off to an island. I think it was St. Bart's and all along those lines. So maybe that's
but the 65-year-old boyfriend is not her dad. If you want if you want your dad to be your boyfriend, you got to move to Arizona, because now if your dad makes you pregnant, it's illegal for you to get an abortion.
That's a very interesting scenario, counselor. We'll take that one under advisement.
But that's why you don't want to vote for Republicans, because they create situations like this. There were people.
That was a 5-4 decision, by the way, so it wasn't like it was unanimous by the Arizona Supreme Court. Interesting if it'll go on appeal to the United States Supreme Court, because there's reasons for appeal, which we just said. First of all, there was a law that was passed that's contra to that in 2022. And the Supreme Court of Arizona, in their infinite wisdom, said the 1864 law was not revoked when the 2022 law was passed. That's what they're saying. This could go in front of the United States Supreme Court, and I wouldn't have any doubt. And there's reasons for a reversal. What I just said, does the prior law take effect, or does the current
I think they're having a ballot measure to protect abortion in Arizona.
Yeah, there's a ballot measure now. What's really
they did. It was actually passed in 2022, and what
they had one this year.
The 1864 law overrides the 2022 law because there was no revocation provision put in, or something incredibly stupid like that. So it's just another reason not to live in Arizona. I have my whole list of reasons not to live in Arizona. You can just add that to the list.
There is a ballot provision this year on the Arizona ballot. But the interesting part is watching all the Republicans run for the hills now with Florida and its draconian law, and now with Arizona with its Civil War era law. How all the Republicans win with the Supreme Court decision, all ranted and raved. Oh, this is what we want. This is what we want. Now we want a national ban. And now, because they see the actual poll numbers and how it hurt them in 2022 big time, in the other elections, they are starting to. Oh well, let's be. That's why Donald Trump, when he asked for a national ban, now he ran from a national ban. Now he wants the states to do it. Now he goes out publicly. Well, we're gonna just listen to the states. Yeah, okay.
Just really quickly, as we're heading out the door.
This is why you don't want Donald Trump to be president again, because judges are forever, and he appoints unqualified lunatics. And with modern medicine, if you appoint a 45-year-old judge, that judge might still be on the bench 50 years from now.
Yep, that's very true. And I know we're walking out the door. I'm just trying to figure out if Donald Trump's, because he's had, 4 wives or 5? I've lost track and everything. But his next wife is going to be a 21-year-old as well, because I'm thinking that Donald Trump will do that whole number of going for somebody young, much in the way that Russell Simmons' daughter did with somebody old.
I don't think Donald Trump can have sex anymore. I think with all his issues and being old, not in great shape, that sex is... He may make noises like he still likes sex, but I don't buy that he's a sexual creature anymore. all of his sexual assaults, I think, they tapered off after 2008.
Gotcha. Really quickly, we're heading out the door, Sasha. Any thoughts about what we're going to have at 1 o'clock with your Modern Investment Show? Because I do know that'll be coming up at 1 o'clock.
Sure, we'll discuss this CPI number. We will talk about NVIDIA. For example, even daily today, when Dow Jones is going down 300-400 points, it was 500 earlier. NVIDIA is doing very nicely. It's up about 10 points. And again, you have to understand the correlation. Okay, so there is a higher inflation, 0.1%. How it can possibly affect the business of company like NVIDIA, which is producing state-of-the-art chips which are in demand all over the places, anywhere from Google to much even Microsoft and much smaller companies or so. How is it 0.1% can affect NVIDIA? Nowhere even close it can affect NVIDIA. And yet people, because they're paid to talk. So when you are paid to talk, you have to talk about something, whatever comes to your mind, whatever you can imagine, whatever you can figure out or so on, you have to talk. That's what people are doing, for example, on some channels like CNBC and some others, they are paying. And the only thing is what I heard more or less making sense to me was Jim Cramer, where he said people have to understand what they own, because when there is a hype and everything is going up, NVIDIA is flying, so you're buying a couple of hundred shares of NVIDIA, and then it's no longer flying, and there's some correction, say 5, maybe 10%. So it's going down. So, oh my God, what's happened? Why did they buy NVIDIA? So they don't have a clue. They're all followers, and that's how a lot of people are losing their money. They're buying something that they don't understand what they're buying. They're buying because of hype. And you can buy just as well Donald J. Trump Corporation and enjoy yourself. Okay, you're one of the Republicans. You're one of the supporters of Trump. Oh, your stock went down from $50 to $15. Oh my God, how it could happen? Well, okay, I'll take a loss because there is a margin call. Okay, so I must to lose some money. But I supported Trump. Good for me. So, if you want to support Trump, buy 5 shares, get certificate, put on your wall, and say to your grandchildren, okay, I'm supporter of Trump. Here is a certificate that I invested some money, say $500, and this is what for you and for your grandchildren, and so forever. Okay, that's what we are going to talk today on the investment show.
Sounds good. I look forward to it. I'll be definitely producing that at 1 o'clock. So looking forward to seeing you at that time. I know that if Trump wins, I'm going to invest in one of those clocks. They call them the end of the term clocks and all along those lines. So that'll be my investment, because I had one, I think, with Reagan or one of the other presidents, where you literally had the clock that was ticking down into when that person that you didn't like would be out of office and all along those lines. So that'll be my investment. But hopefully I won't have to buy it, because hopefully he won't win. So right now we're going to get on out of here, and we'll see you at 1 o'clock on Modern Investment.
Thank you. Bye-bye.